Hello and welcome to Rotted Reviews, and today I'm going to be tackling yet another Rotted request, this time coming from patron Jackie, who wanted me to watch and review the 1999 movie Ravenous. If you would like to join the Rotted Reviews Patreon family, just go ahead and click the link below. We have watch parties, Discord benefits, exclusive videos, behind the scenes stuff, and more starting at only $1 a month. Go ahead and check it out. I would really appreciate it. Now, Jackie's reasoning for this pick in the month of December is, while not a Christmas horror film, this is a cold, snowy horror film, and there is a Robert Carlyle, so that's great. Sure enough, by all accounts, absolutely true. Now, sure enough, this movie did come out in 1999, and when it did, it was to a fairly mild critical reception. A lot of folks describe this as just too mean and grotesque and cruel, which honestly puts it right in my wheelhouse. So this was written by Ted Griffin and directed by Antonia Bird. And Antonia Bird is more known for directing BBC productions, British television series, spooks, things like that. And from what I understand, this was a little bit of a last-minute decision, as the original director of Milcho Manchevsky was fired about 2 weeks into production, and Robert Carlyle reached out to his good friend Antonia Bird about whether or not she'd be willing to take the helm. So Ravenous primarily follows the character of Captain John Boyd, played by Guy Pearce, as a soldier in the 19th century around the time of the Mexican-American War. And after a particular battle where John proved an act of cowardice, but in the public eye, by all accounts, it looked like an act of bravery, he wound up getting promoted. But all the officers around him kind of knew what was going on, so he didn't just get promoted. He also got posted to a remote outpost up in Northern California, where he was basically shuffled off.
I want you as far from my company as possible. I'm sending you to California.
And that's when he arrives at Fort Spencer, where he is to act as third in command under Colonel Hart, played by Jeffrey Jones. And everything seems to be going swimmingly. Or as swimmingly as it can possibly happen, with John having to constantly be haunted by his past and his decisions in the past. Until one day, a half-dead, half-frozen stranger appeared on the doorstep in need of aid and telling the tale of his wagon train as it got beleaguered by snow when they sought refuge in a cave, until the days and weeks traveled by, lessening their provisions until they resorted to cannibalism. So yes, the central horror core surface level storyline of Ravenous is a tale of cannibalism. And also, generally the notion of taking somebody's power and strength and so forth by the act of cannibalism. But there's a lot more under the surface of Ravenous that makes me really truly appreciate it, not just on the surface level tale, which was actually kind of interesting, but also on a deeper subtextual level. So yes, on the surface, Ravenous did play out a little bit mean and cruel, but honestly, I'm okay with that. I think it's going to be a little bit difficult to actually have a really engaging cannibalism story without being a little bit mean and cruel. And from a horror movie lover's perspective, there was a lot to like about this. The gore and the blood and the violence and so on was really well done. The characters were dynamic and interesting. The setting was absolutely gorgeous. The soundtrack was very odd in the best fashion possible, with some kind of delightfully melodic tones that really counterbalanced the absolute carnage that was happening on screen at any given point. Altogether, there was just a whole lot to love about this movie. But then beyond the surface level, when I really started to kind of dig into the overall thematic tones of this film, I found even more to love. There's a fantastic level of balance between different types of conflicts in this film, and a multitude of them. John being haunted by his past and his brush, inadvertent as it may have been, with cannibalism, and feeling the power that resulted of that, wound up in a place of a very strong level of man versus self conflict. There's also a very large amount of man versus nature conflict, with the brutality of the setting and the snow and the winter harsh nature atmosphere there. And then Robert Carlyle playing the stranger, providing the counterbalance and the pro column to try and advocate for cannibalism and swing John to the other side, provides a very strong man versus man level of conflict. There's a whole lot happening here just on a character level. But even beyond that, I think that Ravenous provides a really strong kind of messaging in terms of the inherent folly and nature of wicked levels of consumption and really spoke to the era of the time and the era that we currently exist in, putting a spotlight on some of the error of our ways in terms of manifest destiny and refusing to just be satisfied living off the land and being in harmonious balance with our level of consumption, and instead needing to consume everything because it's in our blood, it's what we do, it's how we gain more strength and more power. We have to consume, and not consider the ethical nature of that consumption, because by doing so we gain strength and the ends justifies the means. Or do they? That's the conflict of Ravenous that really caught me by surprise and provided a very strong messaging that went way beyond just the surface level antics of cannibalism and blood and gore and eating human flesh, which was fun. Now, I mentioned that this movie did open up to, let's just say, mild critical fanfare, and I'm glad that it's kind of having a resurgence of late. I have been noticing this pattern happen more and more lately with movies from the late 90s and early aughts that opened up to a fair amount of panning, now kind of getting a little bit of a second look and a resurgence of popularity amongst horror fans. Movies like House of Wax, 13 Ghosts, Ghost Ship, so on and so forth, that are now being viewed as more than the sum of their parts, or at the very least, just fun popcorn fare that really shouldn't be ignored like they have been. So if you haven't seen Ravenous, or if it's been a while since you have seen it, I do recommend giving it another watch. This is a very strong movie, albeit one with a very kind of odd, quirky nature to it, but nevertheless, it is one I do recommend. If you have seen it lately, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Go ahead and leave some comments below. I'd love to hear whether you liked it, whether you hated it, and why. So yeah, go ahead and please leave comments. I'd love to hear from you. And beyond that, I think that should about wrap this one up. So thank you very much for joining me here today. I look forward to seeing you in my next review. And remember, next time you want to watch a horror movie, first make sure that it's good and rotted.